The millionaire returns to his old home, but an unexpected discovery forever alters his fate. The engine of the obsidian-black Mercedes purred, a low, sophisticated sound that seemed entirely out of place on the cracked, weed-choked streets of Detroit's outskirts. Inside, James Morgan adjusted his silk tie, his reflection in the rearview mirror showing a man who had conquered the world. At 45, James was a titan of industry, a real estate mogul whose name graced the skylines of Chicago and New York. He was a man of glass offices, sharp figures, and cold calculations. But today, the calculation was simple: erase the past. James stepped out of the car, his expensive Italian leather shoes clicking against the broken pavement. Before him stood a house that looked like a wound on the landscape. The paint was peeling in long gray strips, revealing rotting wood beneath. The windows were boarded up, blind eyes staring vacantly at the overgrown yard where rusted bicycles lay half-buried in tall grass. This was 42 Oak Street. This was where James Morgan had been born, where he had learned to fear the dark, and where he had vowed as a terrified 10-year-old that he would never return. His plan was clinical. He owned the block now. His company intended to level this entire section, replacing the decay with sleek, modern townhomes. This specific house was the final obstacle. He didn't want to renovate it. He wanted to bulldoze it. He wanted to watch the wrecking ball turn his childhood nightmares into dust, finally severing the last tether to the poverty and pain that had shaped him. "Good riddance," he whispered to the wind, pulling a set of demolition permits from his briefcase. He walked up the creaking porch steps, the wood groaning under his weight as if protesting his return. The front door, once painted a cheerful blue but now a faded, chipped memory, was locked. James didn't hesitate. He produced a master key, a relic he had kept in his safe deposit box for decades, just in case. The lock turned with a rusty screech, and the door swung open, releasing a breath of stale air that smelled of mildew and forgotten time. Inside, the silence was heavy. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light piercing through the cracks in the boards. The furniture was gone, sold off or thrown away years ago, leaving only ghosts of shapes imprinted on the dirty floorboards. James walked through the living room, his heart hammering a rhythm he tried to suppress. He remembered the shouting here. He remembered the nights he hid under the kitchen table, covering his ears while the world exploded around him. That was why he had left. That was why he had built an empire of steel and glass, to ensure he never had to feel small again. He moved toward the back of the house, heading for the small closet under the stairs. This was his destination. Not to reminisce, but to verify that nothing of value remained before signing the order for demolition. Or so he told himself. As he approached the closet, something caught his eye. Behind the door, slightly obscured by shadows, was a loose floorboard he hadn't noticed in years. It seemed to have been pried up and hastily replaced. Curiosity, a feeling he usually reserved for business acquisitions, tugged at him. He knelt, his expensive Italian leather trousers brushing the grime, and lifted the board. Beneath it lay a small tin box, rusted at the corners but intact. James froze. He didn't remember this box. With trembling hands, he lifted it out. It was heavier than it looked. He sat on the dusty floor, ignoring the stain spreading on his cuff, and pried the lid open. Inside, there was no money, no jewelry, no deeds to property. There was only a stack of letters tied with a fraying red ribbon and a small wooden toy soldier with one arm missing. James picked up the top letter. The handwriting was shaky, the ink faded, but he recognized it instantly. It was his mother's handwriting. But these weren't the angry notes she used to leave on the counter. These were dated from the winter he had run away, the winter before he disappeared into the foster system and eventually reinvented himself as James Morgan. "My dearest Jimmy," the first letter began. "If you are reading this, it means I didn't make it to find you. I am so sorry. Please know that every shout, every tear, every moment of fear you felt in this house was not because I didn't love you. It was because I was broken. Your father broke me, and I let that breakage spill onto you. That is my sin, and I will carry it until my dying day." James felt a lump form in his throat, tight and painful. He skipped to the next letter. I found this old toy soldier today. You loved it so much. You said he was brave because he lost an arm fighting dragons. I want you to have him. Be brave, my son. Be stronger than us. Build a life so beautiful that you forget the ugliness of this place. But never forget that you were loved, even when we failed to show it. Tears, hot and unbidden, streamed down James's face, cutting tracks through the dust on his cheeks. For 30 years he had carried a narrative of abandonment. He had believed he was unwanted debris, discarded by parents who hated him. He had built his fortune on the foundation of that bitterness, using his success as a shield against vulnerability. He thought destroying this house would destroy the pain. But the pain wasn't in the walls. The pain was in the misunderstanding. He read letter after letter, each one a confession of guilt, a plea for forgiveness, and a declaration of fierce, desperate love. His mother hadn't pushed him away. She had been trying to protect him from a situation she couldn't control, and in her confusion and despair, she had failed. She had died 2 years after he left, alone in this very house, clutching the hope that he would one day understand. James clutched the toy soldier to his chest, sobbing openly in the empty, decaying room. The silence of the house was no longer oppressive. It was mournful. It wasn't a tomb of his trauma. It was a shrine to a mother's regret and love. Hours passed. The sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long, golden shadows across the floor. James finally stood up, wiping his face with his handkerchief. He looked around the room, really seeing it for the first time. He saw the scratch marks on the doorframe where he had measured his height. He saw the spot by the window where his mother used to sing to him before the darkness took her. He walked back out to the porch, the tin box tucked securely under his arm. He looked at his Mercedes, then at the demolition permits in his other hand. The wind blew harder now, chilling the sweat on his brow. With a steady hand, James tore the permits in half. Then he tore them again, letting the pieces flutter into the overgrown grass. He wouldn't demolish this house. He couldn't. To destroy it would be to destroy the only proof he had that he was loved. Instead, he would restore it. He would fix the roof, repaint the walls, and bring the light back into these rooms. He would turn this symbol of his pain into a sanctuary, perhaps a community center for kids growing up in the same shadow he had escaped. James Morgan, the millionaire mogul, got back into his car. But the man who drove away was different. He was no longer running from his past. He was finally making peace with it. As he merged onto the highway, leaving the dilapidated house glowing softly in the twilight behind him, he realized that the unexpected discovery hadn't just altered his fate, it had given him back his soul. He was going home, not to erase history, but to heal it.